Hi everyone, my name is Julie. This is Keep Calm with Books and Coffee. I talk about books on this channel, mainly books about magic, and today we're going to be taking some of Leandra's very specific book recommendations for me and putting them to the test. Hello everyone. So a couple of months ago, Leandra put out a video where she put out some very specific book requests for some buzzwords of hers, and then she also asked for people for their very specific book requests and gave recommendations. At the time, I had commented on the video and gotten 3 recommendations from her. They were The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, and Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. And all 3 of these were to fit these prompts. I will put up the comment I left on her video here. Mainly looking for genre blends of fantasy and sci-fi, as well as books that have very specific gods or very specific magics in them. So that's what I was looking for. And since she gave me 3 is the perfect number of books for a vlog for me, I decided to give this a shot and see if I enjoyed these books. So The Tainted Cup is a book I have heard a lot about this year, and this is the story of a Sherlock and Watson type detective duo who have to solve a mystery after a very important person is murdered in a sort of sci-fi fantasy crossover dystopian world. It sounds very interesting. I have had this floating around on my awareness for a while. However, I have DNF'd a Robert Jackson Bennett book before, so I am cautiously optimistic that I will like this. Then we have The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, which is a book about a world where a lot of people's lives are determined by these cataclysmic climate events called the Fifth Season, where the world completely changes and becomes almost inhospitable for people. And we're following several different perspectives as characters try to endure the coming 5th season. Then we have Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, which is a travel book where we're following a group of God's blessed characters who are all traveling to a place where there's going to be a goddess type ceremony at the end. However, they're on this boat together and they start being murdered one by one. And what happens when all of these really powerful people are in a closed environment where, it can only be one of them, and we have to solve the mystery of who is doing the murdering. And all 3 of these sound really interesting. I have had the first 2 on my radar for a while, but Voyage of the Damned is one I didn't know a lot about, and I am interested to try. But we're going into this hoping that these very specific book recommendations are ones that I really enjoy, and I can't wait to see if these work out. Hello everyone, and welcome to my first update for this vlog. So I have just started The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, and this, I believe, is a Sherlockian retelling or interpretation in a more sci-fi fantasy world. It's a murder mystery, and I have high hopes for this, but I'm also nervous. It sounds really interesting. I really love the concept, and I am really interested in the characters so far. I've read in 1 entire chapter, but I'm very, very intrigued. However, I have DNF'd a Robert Jackson Bennett series before. I read Foundry Side, and I don't remember my exact rating. I think it was a 3-star. It might have been lower than that, but I can't remember. And I DNF'd the series. It just wasn't for me. The writing style wasn't for me. So I'm a little bit nervous going into this one, but I believe this is a standalone. I could be wrong, but I'm interested to see how this goes, and I'm wondering if I'm going to like it more. So far, I am fascinated. One of my favorite specific magics or specific things that I find really interesting in books is spore horror. So I find it really interesting that this seems to be in that realm, but also mixes sci-fi and fantasy. So I believe that's what Leandra recommended this for, that mix of sci-fi and fantasy. So I'm interested to see how this goes, and I'm excited to try it. I'm going to continue reading this. I'm reading a couple other things at the same time, so I'm going to be rotating it in, but I am really excited for this one. And the audiobook is good so far too, but it feels very ominous, and I can't wait to see where we go with our main characters. Hello everyone. So I am just home from brunch with some friends and I wanted to update you on The Tainted Cup. So this book has literally just gotten interesting. I think I'm at the like 22% mark and I was very iffy on it up until now because there's a lot going on. There's a murder, there's a whole world system, but I don't understand any of it yet. So I think we're finally getting to the point where I am starting to understand. Something has just happened that has kind of been the catalyst to our, I think, how we're going to learn about the world system. And yes, so I wasn't 100% sure, but I do like the Sherlock and Watson dynamic here. I do like that quite a bit. And I also am very curious about this world and how everything works because it is a blend of like sci-fi and fantasy like I really want. It also has that little bit of like sporer contagion element to it, which is something I really like. I'm still not a 100% fan of the writing style. I'm at like a 75% sure ratio on the writing style. Really not quite sure on the writing style, but I do like our characters and that is a big plus for me. So I am, like I said, 25% in and I'm having a good time. Not having a great time yet, but I am very curious and I'm going to keep going. And I have to finish this in the next couple of days because my audiobook loan returns then and I don't have a physical copy of this book. So we're going to have to try and push to get through this, but I think we can do it. But that's my update for now. So I will tell you more later. Hello everyone. So it's been a little bit since I've updated you on The Tainted Cup. So here we are. I'm at 50%. I'm playing Libby Chicken with both The Perils of Lady Catherine de Bourgh and this book right now because they both go back within the next couple of days. So I'm trying to get both finished. I'm at the 50% mark of Tainted Cup right now. So that's the update I'm going to give you. I'm really enjoying this. For being as hesitant as I was to try it because of Robert Jackson Bennett's writing style in the Foundry Side series, which I found really frustrating, this one isn't working like that. I am really enjoying this. I think the mystery is laid out better than in the other book. It's also not as repetitive. There was a thing in Robert Jackson's Foundry Side that I found frustrating, that we'd like review these like fighting sequence scenes or like scenes like that, like action scenes from multiple angles, and then I felt like we were like repeating the same thing over and over. So I like that that has been like streamlined. I like Din a lot. He is a really interesting narrator. I'm really curious about him and everything that's going on with him. And I also like our Holmes character, whose name like does not stick with me. And I think that is the one thing that I would really critique about this book at this point. Din is like our main character. We're in his head. We're following him closely. And all the other characters just kind of blend into the background for me. Like, I know the woman he works with, the like investigator, the Holmes character, is important. When her name is said on page, I recognize it, but I can't like recall it to tell you it, and I can't even like recall her title. Those are just like slipping out of my brain because there's a lot of titles, there's a lot of names. So for me, they're just like not sticking with me. Like, everyone except Din is kind of just in the background right now. And also Jackson Bennett, I think, recognizes this because he like explains who people are when they get reintroduced to a scene. So that's helping me, but that's like my critique so far, that I just can't seem to keep these people's names or the places or like anything about the people in my head. I'm learning about the like world just fine. I'm finding the world absolutely fascinating. This blend of like historical like empire feel with the fantasy sci-fi horror like mix is just chef's kiss, beautiful, love it so much. And the kind of combo of mystery and fantasy is also excellent. But these like this like wide cast of like semi-background characters are really messing with me. So I'm just gonna keep following Din, having a great time with him, really interested to see where this goes, and I hope I can finish it before it goes back to the library, because I am like not going to get it back for a while because I think there's like 6 people waiting on this. So we're gonna keep going and hopefully get it done. Hello everybody. So I am on my way off to work this morning and I wanted to update you because I finished The Tainted Cup. Now, I really enjoyed this book. I had a good time reading it. I think it's going to land at like a 4-star. I might come back to you with a different rating. We'll see. But I don't really have a lot of different thoughts than the 50% mark. I really liked the way the author played out this mystery. I really enjoyed our characters. I just had a good time with this book, but it didn't quite wow me. I was having a good time and I want to read more in this series, but I also it didn't blow me out of the water. So we're gonna sit at like a 4-star right now, and I just feel like maybe I need to reread it at a different time or something to kind of grasp all the world building, because like I said, the names didn't stick with me and all of that, but I did really enjoy it. So maybe it's just a me thing with the names, but yeah, overall, I had a great time with this. I want to read more in this series. I might try something else by Robert Jackson Bennett other than his Foundry Side series. And I feel like a lot of the problems that I had with that series kind of were different in this series. Like things were different and they weren't present here for me. So that's my update for now. So far, a win for Leandra. And now we're going to move on to the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, which is in my house. I didn't bring it out here. Hello, everyone. So my next book for this vlog is going to be the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, which I am very excited to read because I've heard nothing but good things about it. But if you feel a little bit of a shift here in the vlog, it is because the US election has now happened in my timeline, and it is, I don't have a lot of words for what it is. So I am definitely feeling excited to read this book because I've heard nothing but amazing things about N.K. Jemisin and about this series in particular. But reading a dystopian right now feels really heavy. So I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna read it. But I'm also still processing a lot of big emotions about what's going on, feeling a lot of things, and really none of them are good. Hello. I still have my coat on because I'm off to go pick up my groceries. I have like a little tiny window here where I'm going to be like home, and then I have to go pick up for my pickup window. I am nearly at the 50% mark of the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, which I am having a really good time with. I have wanted to read this for years, and I wanted to update you before now actually, but I stopped at about the 25% mark and I wasn't ready to give you my thoughts. And then I put the book down for a couple of days because this is quite dense. And then I came back and read to the 50% mark and I was like, now I have to update them. I have to, So we have about 3 perspectives in this book that we are following. One perspective feels very urgent. The other perspective feels very informative, and the third perspective feels political. So I am enjoying the balance here and the kind of way that we are moving the story forward, or all 3 of these stories forward, without it becoming overwhelming. The way N.K. Jemisin doesn't info dump things on you, but you are getting pieces of the puzzle constantly. And it's so interesting and well done and well constructed. It's a beautiful writing style and beautiful way to plot a book. It's absolutely stunning. The story itself is both dense and heavy in content. There is a lot of stuff happening right now that I have to take time to process and think about. So while I'm reading what's happening, I am also trying to take breaks so that I can filter this information and absorb it better rather than just plowing through this book. So I do, like I said, I am at basically the 50% mark right now, and I have a few tabbies in here, but overall I am just having a really good time reading this. The way it's science fiction and fantasy and climate fiction and social commentary all wrapped up into one story is really fascinating. So I am enjoying this, and I am anxious to read more. I wasn't anticipating when I started this that I was gonna like dive head first into this series and probably gonna need to read it pretty back to back, but I'm thinking that I'm gonna have to get to the Obelisk Gate pretty quickly after I finish this book because I just don't want to forget anything. There's enough here, and like I said, while I'm in the story, I'm absorbing it and understanding it, but there's also so much packed into, you know, these 200 pages that I've read. I don't want to lose any of that going forward. So I feel like I'm gonna have to, I should probably put a hold on the Obelisk Gate audiobook going forward. And I have been immersion reading this on and off, like not completely immersion reading it, but I have been, you know, stopping and listening and reading at the same time occasionally as things start to get complicated. So I might also have to buy a copy of the Obelisk Gate before the end of the year, because I'm sure we'll see how this book ends, but I am sure I'm gonna want copies of these for my shelves because this is so lauded. That's part of the reason I haven't read it yet, because it's intimidating in the way that it is so well received, so congratulated, so on so many lists, but I think it's worth that at this point. Like I would like to pick up the next book and have it on my shelves without even reading it because I'm loving this one. So if you're interested in what bookmark I'm using for this, it is Margaret's Fablin Shadow Library bookmarks, which are shiny and beautiful. So just a little update, but I need to go pick up my groceries. I think I'm gonna grab dinner. I've been craving a stromboli real bad. So I think I'm gonna pick up either a stromboli or a calzone on the way back and jump into this tonight. Hello and good evening. So I'm currently at the 75% mark of the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, but I am simply too lazy right now to get up off my couch and go upstairs and give you a update in bright light. I have ambiance on, I have the Christmas tree lit over here, and I know this lighting is not going to be great, but I don't want to move. I'm having a really nice evening right here. So I'm playing Libby Chicken with the 5th season right now. I think this goes back on Monday morning, and I am at the 75% mark. I think I have about 2 hours left of the audiobook, so I should be able to get through most of it tonight and then some of it hopefully tomorrow before I have like plans and such. So if I don't finish it tonight, I will finish it tomorrow morning, but it feels like Libby Chicken because I have a pretty full day tomorrow. So that's how I'm feeling about the book. I continue to think this is masterfully paced, because every time I start to feel like we're getting into like there's just like a very nice rhythm to this where we kind of have action, we have some scenes, we have something going on, and I just get to the point where I'm like, I really need some kind of answer or resolution to this, and then we get it. It might not be the one I want or the one that's gonna like reveal everything, but it just kind of like slowly is like building up that trust between me and the author that Jemisin is gonna like provide me answers. I really like how I keep getting to these points in the book where like at the 50% mark and the 75% mark, where we're just hitting these like milestones and you feel the story progressing in a really nice way, and it just feels right. Like it just feels like everything is happening in the time that it should, and it's just so well done. Like I'm never reaching too much or getting too frustrated with the narrative, and I'm loving it. So I am, the only thing that I don't necessarily love about this book is that I talk about this sometimes with characters. I'm a very character focused reader, and this is character focused, but I would say it's also very world building and very politic focused. Like it's probably like in thirds, I would say, that what we're focusing on and what the story is balancing. So we're balancing the pace very well, and we're balancing all of those pieces very well. Overall, I do feel a little bit distant from these characters, and I think that's understandable. They're in all three of our main character perspectives are in situations where we're not getting personal details about them necessarily. Like, I am connected to these characters, I care about them, I feel for their situations, I'm very worried about them. I just got through a section where I was so stressed about one of our main character perspectives. However, I do feel very distant from them, slightly lessening my enjoyment of the book, but I'm still seeing how much, like, how well this is written and how well this is being done. It's just a personal preference that I would prefer the characters to be a little more of the focus. But because we're splitting our time between world building and politics and the characters so well, it's like also distracting me from it, because there's just so much going on in this book, both like on the surface and in the finer details. It's excellent. I really, really enjoy it. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm not sure, I don't even have a guess of what my rating is going to be, because I anticipate this last 25% to be intense. So we're going to see where I feel at the end of that, but yeah, this has been a really fascinating journey, and I am going to have to continue this series very, very soon so that I don't forget any of these finer details. Hello everyone, I have finished the 5th season. I didn't think to bring it with me today because I had finished it yesterday and I didn't think to bring it to the car. But I am done. I loved this book. I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to rate it. It's somewhere between a 4 and a 5 stars. I don't think I quite got the full 5-star feeling from this. Just because I mentioned my critiques that I felt very separate from the customers, the characters for a lot of this book. And that changed in the last like third of the book, or the last 25% or so. I felt like I got very, very attached to the characters. But I just, for that first like 2/3, because I was trying to figure so much out, there was so much going on, the characters were like intentionally, and like towards the end of the book you realize that the characters are being intentionally like vague about things, and that you are not supposed to quite understand what's going on. But like, it took me a little while to get there. So for me personally, I think this is going to end up being like a 4.5 as far as my rating goes. Still thinking about it a little bit, but I really, really enjoyed this. Like I mentioned before, the pacing, the world building was incredible. I loved that section of the book, or that like portion of the book. I loved how N.K. Jemisin built this story across the book. I can't wait to continue on with this series. And I thought the underlying messages that she built into this story were so well crafted, and just setting up so much for going forward, alongside the mystery of like what is going on in this world, and like what is happening, and how we're going to, you know, approach things going forward. I'm trying to be vague because I don't want to be spoilery, but overall this was just incredible, and I can't wait to read more of her work. So I am definitely going to be continuing this series in the new year, and I can't wait to continue on. So I think the last book that I have for this vlog is Voyage of the Damned, that I am going to be buddy reading with Brittany the first week of December. So this vlog is taking a little longer than what I anticipated, but sometimes that happens. Good morning, everyone. So I have started Voyage of the Damned, which is a like murder mystery on a boat in a fantasy world, where we have these within each of the 12 provinces of this country, or island, I guess, or territory, each one of them has a different person who has an ability, and they are like the blessed of this province. And each one of them has to, since they're all 12, I guess, are alive at the same time, they are going to go on a voyage together in order to do a ceremony at the end. And it's really interesting. This political system is very interesting so far. I'm not even sure I completely described it right, because I'm a third of the way into the book, but there has been a lot happening. Like, I feel like I'm slowly actually like getting a better handle on it, but at the beginning there was a lot of info dump. But I'm buddy reading this with Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and I actually, like, we were talking about it, and it's not a bad info dump. It's a lot of information at the beginning, but I feel like I have a better handle on the political and like religious and world system than if it had trickled into me at this point, because I feel like I had to, like, I knew I was supposed to be absorbing this stuff when it was being info dumped at the beginning, and it was in a way that wasn't like just like wah 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 wah. We were at a party. We were going around and like meeting each one of these like 12 blessed and getting information about their province and what's going on and who they're allies with and everything. So it was like very like interesting. It was just a lot. And now we've gotten to like the murder mystery point. There was a very specific moment in this book where I went from, I'm not sure if I'm gonna like this, to this is interesting. Oh, I am very invested now. And it wasn't even the murder mystery point. It was something that happened just before that got introduced that I was like, oh, okay, I'm good now. So I'm really enjoying this. I'm loving how complex the world and politics are. I really like our main character. I was really hesitant in the first like 10 or 15%, but now we read like 100 pages in this first day, which was wild, but I'm kind of glad we did, because it really like just threw me into the deep end of this book, and I feel like I'm through all the setup and now we're in the thick of the story, which like I feel if I had been left to my own devices with this, I would have probably put it down once I started to get confused and been more confused when I went back to it. So I'm really thankful for the buddy read and that it sort of accidentally worked out that we read a bunch of pages at first. Sorry, Brittany. But yes, so I am enjoying this a lot. I'm already like, we have a like small child who I am like enamored with, as well as a small dragon beast that I am enamored with. So there's a lot of like elements here that I find really interesting. I am trying to figure out if this is based on the zodiac, the like way, the myth that they are using for the basis of this like religion and political system is reminding me so much of Fruits Baskets, the manga, and I'm having a hard time like not relating it to that. Like, it just, the way that there was a point where they like told the myth, and I was like, this sounds so much like the zodiac, or the zodiac in Fruits Baskets. So it's interesting to me. But yeah, we're 30% in. I'm very invested. I am going to see Wicked tonight, so I'm trying to listen to as much of my pages this morning as possible. I think I'm at the halfway point, so that when I get home tonight, I have a little bit of time to possibly read something else before we go to Wicked. And yeah, but that's my update for this morning. I have my coffee here. I have a little bit of a headache this morning. I'll be honest. I'm feeling a little bit like under the weather, but I think I might just be tired. But yeah, so I am off to work, and I will tell you, I'll probably try to update you like right after the 50% mark, so you probably won't see me for a couple of days now. Hey, hi, hello, good morning. So I'm at the 90% mark of Voyage of the Damned, and I completely forgot to update you. So I'm just gonna hold my thoughts until the end, because I don't anticipate them changing much at this point, just based on where we are in the story. And also, I don't want to give you a whole spiel on what I'm feeling and then kind of just have nothing to say at the end. So we're just going to finish up the book, and then I will come back to you and tell you what I think. Hello, everyone. So it is the evening after I told you that I was at the 90% mark. I finished The Voyage of the Damned this morning, and it's time to wrap up the vlog. So I just wanted to First, we'll talk about Voyage of the Damned, and then we'll see how successful Leandra's recommendations were. So Voyage of the Damned was really better than I was expecting. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. Just going into it, I was hesitant about like kind of the amount of genre blend that there was there, because it was mystery and fantasy and just lots of things going on within this. So I was a little hesitant. And like I said, in the first 30% or so, I know I was hesitant. But till we got to the like 50% mark, I was completely vibing with this book. I loved the politics. I liked our characters. I found the structure of like the world really fascinating. And I liked what we were exploring and how we were kind of investigating the mystery. Between the 50 and 75% mark, I was starting to feel like we were kind of just doing the same thing over and over. So I was ready for a change. And then at the 75% mark, I got a change, and I didn't love exactly in what direction we went in, because I felt like the romance started to take a bigger portion of our focus, and I just didn't love that as much, because partially I feel like the romance started to feel a little immature, a little young, on the younger side, when so many other things, like, this is a murder mystery, people are dying, and this is like, there's also like this huge focus on these abilities and the future of this country empire, and like how they are going to survive when these people who have blessings pass away and they don't have a way to pass them on to the next person. Like these big moving political parts and these like murders happening left and right, and then this romance just felt a little immature in comparison. So I didn't hate it. I didn't hate the last bit or anything. I just didn't like it as much as the first 3/4 of the book. And I just sort of, I don't know, it just didn't, the romance didn't sit as well with me either in this last part of the book as it did kind of go from previous moments. So I don't know. It was good. I liked it. I ended up on a 4-star. I didn't dislike the book, but that last bit didn't jive with me as well as I wanted it to. I continue to love the characters, love the world building and the politics and everything. So fascinating, such an interesting world. I liked the writing style. I liked how funny we had these like little moments of humor from a lot of different people. Like I said, I was endeared to the child. I was endeared to the little dragons. It was so a fun read. Overall, a fun time. Just at the end, some things didn't come together quite the way I wanted them to, but I was talking to Brittany about this, and I did like how this was like, there was lots of moving pieces in this book between the politics and the murder plot like I was talking about, but then there's this also a huge plot point of our main character D kind of just learning about his spot in the world, like learning about himself, and kind of it's a self-discovery journey, and I just really loved that. So that was a big part of it that endeared me to this book as we were going along. And then when we were talking about it at the end and we kind of realized that, I think I loved it even more. But so we're gonna settle on 4-star. Good time was had. And so how does that shake out for Leandra? So at the end of the day, I gave The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett 4 stars. And this was, I believe, recommended based on the fact that it is a sci-fi fantasy blend. There is an element of the very specific magics in here because we have characters who have specific abilities and they're like named, and you do this job if you have this, if you've acquired this ability, and so on and so forth. So this had all of the elements that I liked. The characters were really good. I enjoyed this book overall. I gave it a 4-star, and I want to continue on with this series. So a definite win for Leandra here. Then we had The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin, which was another book that blended fantasy and sci-fi in a lot of really interesting ways. It also had a climate fiction element to it. And also, I would argue that there is a little bit of that specific magics type thing in here, specific magics type element in here, we'll say, because we have characters who do specific jobs. It's not quite as magical as something in the Tainted Cup was, but it's still like we have these different people who are doing different jobs. So I did like that as well, and I did notice that as an element of something that's kind of similar. So, and I gave this a 4.5 stars, so another win for Leandra. And then when we get to the last one, Voyage of the Damned, this had, I would say this had mostly fantastical elements rather than any kind of like sci-fi fantasy blend, but it was a genre blend in that it was mystery and, like I said, fantasy and a voyage. So there were lots of elements here, and we did have characters who had very specific magics. Each blessing was different, and it was very mysterious about what these blessings were for each character, and we kind of had to like search that out and figure out what their abilities were. So that was a focus of the book, as well as it being something that was just in the book itself. So, and I ended up giving this a 4-star. So I would say another win for Leandra. So overall, all of these recommendations hit the nail on the head. They were all great. I think something I have learned from this vlog as I was like watching back the footage is that I have to take more notes because 2 out of the 3 books, I think maybe all 3, I listened to on audio, and I only tandem read or like immersion read the 5th season. But in the other 2 books, there were a lot of characters and a lot of names and a lot of like places, things, elements that I started to get confused because I was only listening to the audiobook. So I think that's something I have learned from this vlog as well, is that I might want to reread The Tainted Cup before I jump into the sequel with a physical copy and kind of tandem read it so that I get a better understanding. So maybe this wasn't just a book problem, maybe this was a me problem. So I am thinking about rereading it and seeing if my rating improves from there. But overall, a great time was had, like I said, and I really enjoyed all 3 of these books. I had a really good time with all of the elements that I asked for, and I really appreciate Leandra taking the time and figuring these out as recommendations for me. But that is everything that I have to talk about today. That's the end of the vlog. If you have any thoughts or feelings or want to share anything about the books that I talked about today, you can leave me a comment down below. If you aren't feeling chatty, go ahead and leave me like a detective or a magnifying glass emoji for like the mystery. For Leandra, since she's a big mystery reader. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.